Hey adventurers! So today is another review, and that is for the Ruins of Gorlan, which is book 1 of the Ranger's Apprentice series. First off, before we get started, we're going to say this is probably the only one that we'll do a solo review for. The next ones we'll do 2 or 3 books and then have a batch review for them. Alright, so characters. Will is the first character. When we meet him, he's with his 4 other ward mates. They are wards of, I forget what the guy's name is. I wanted to say Sir Redalk, but that's not it.
It starts with a B.
Sir...
Go to one with Horus. It's Horus and Drax.
Why don't I go to the beginning?
Baron.
Baron Arald. Baron Arald. So the 5 wards are wards of Baron Arald, and I don't remember what the castle's name is, so I'm not going to go look for it. And we meet them right before they get selected for their apprenticeships. They each have their own apprenticeship that they go into, and Will gets chosen by the Ranger Halt, who we'll get to in just a second.
Will is unsure and lacks confidence in the beginning of the book, but he's also witty and fun. He gains confidence as the story goes on through hard work and consistency of that hard work. And that's true progress, in my opinion. Yeah,
we saw some character growth in this first book. A little bit, there was definitely some there. And we're really looking forward to seeing more as the series progresses. So the next character is Horus. Horus is one of Will's ward mates, and he is selected for battle school under he's apprenticed to Sir Rodney, who we won't get to in a second.
Horus is bold and overconfident, but through this book he grows and develops some maturity and humility. He's a very tough person and character, but he puts up with a lot, so that toughness has its purpose.
So although he does put up with a lot throughout this book, once he finally gets to the breaking point and loses it, he just absolutely explodes and does not literally, figuratively explodes and can do some serious damage.
Moving on to Ranger Halt, Tony has it written out like this. He's like a burnt marshmallow. He has a very harsh exterior, but is humble and caring.
Kate,
we're looking forward to seeing why his exterior seems so hard, whether or not this has something to do with his past. Oh, I thought that was going to say something about the fluff or something, marshmallow fluff.
No. Kate was the one who said he's like a burnt marshmallow, and then she said, no, don't put that in, but I had already written it, so I didn't delete it.
I think I said he's like a marshmallow.
No, you said he's like a burnt marshmallow. I wrote the words down exactly. Anyways.
It's a fitting description, so...
Yeah, he's a pretty
burnt fella.
He's been through a lot, let's put it that way. He's been through a lot through his, I don't think it ever specifies his age, but he's been a ranger for a long time and has dealt with a lot in those years, and it's hardened him, but he's also got a softer side that you don't really see, and a more comedic side, I guess, that you really don't see because...
It's like dry humor.
It's dry humor, yeah. And it's hilarious as the reader to see it, but for Will, who doesn't understand his sense of humor yet, he doesn't quite catch it.
One thing we will say about this story is we didn't quite connect to the characters as well as we have with other characters in other books. It is a pretty short book, and there isn't a whole lot of time to see development, especially since we're following a couple different perspectives in the story. So I'm interested to see if we start loving these characters more throughout the books. And one small disclaimer, I'm having a little bit hard time giving a really unbiased opinion of this book just because it's not my taste as far as the writing style and the age range.
Yeah, like I mentioned earlier, the age range is it's written as a middle grade, and that's a little bit below our reading levels now, so we're kind of not quite at the appropriate age to be reading these.
And get the full enjoyment out of them. Yeah, so we're doing our best to keep this as straightforward as we can.
Yep. So the plot for this story is basically Will, a young boy, is chosen to be an apprentice to the Ranger Halt. Throughout the book, we see him start his training to be a ranger and his trials and adventures as such. That's a pretty basic overview. A pretty basic overview of the entire story, and it we've kept it basic because we didn't want to get into spoilers, because there's some spoilers pretty early on in this book. And then there's some spoilers pretty late on in this book. Feel like we're just padding for time now, which we don't actually need to do, and we don't care about.
Moving on to themes. So the themes in the Ruins of Gorlan were really refreshing for me.
Yeah.
Very different from what you would see in a middle grade, and also different from the last book we reviewed, which was Mockingjay and the overall Hunger Games series. It was really nice to think about this book and find the themes in here.
It was kind of a bit of fresh air after the smoky, smoggy era of
Morally gray air
of
Hunger
Hunger
Games.
Games.
Yeah. So a couple of the themes we saw were You're Valuable, adoption, friendship, camaraderie, and brotherhood were really prevalent themes in this book.
Yeah.
And there's such different themes. I mean, the
It's
fact that we're seeing this in a mid-grade book is really, really amazing, because these are themes that this mid-grade books would be the books that you could have an excuse to do themes like Do Right, I feel like.
Yeah. These themes aren't really like uncommon at all, but the fact, and I think it's because these were written in, I don't remember, I think this was
the
written
copyright in the beginning of the book.
in the early 2000s. Anyways, I think it was written in the early 2000s, and so at that time when they're writing, those themes would have been pretty common, but the books that we're reading right now that have come out fairly recently or are in a different genre altogether, they have very different themes. So although these themes the themes that are in this book aren't uncommon, we haven't run into them in a while, and that's why they're so refreshing.
So moving on to the world/setting, it takes place mostly in a forest, so we're just talking about the physical part of the world. So the world is very similar to Earth in sense of flora, but it's laid out a little differently. And there's not really anything really extraordinary to touch on about the world setting yet anyhow.
Yeah, I think there definitely could be. There's some hints that there might be. I mean, there's the Wailing Plains, or whatever that place is called.
That was cool.
That was a very unique look that reminded me a bit of Stonehenge, but far more fantasy.
I thought it was Stonehenge.
Stonehenge.
Are you sure it's not Stonehead?
I know what it is. Anyways.
Blockhead.
So though it wasn't super different from Earth, planet Earth, it is a high fantasy, so there's obviously going to be some differences. The most notable differences that we noticed were the creatures. There was some new creatures, unique creatures that I don't think I've seen in other fantasy works. But again, I haven't read all the fantasy works, so yeah.
So there's not really we don't see any of the magic system of the world in this book, so we've just kind of moved on past that, on to general thoughts. I do feel like this book was written for a younger reader than we both are, but even with that, I did get to a point, once I got to that point of recognition, like, okay, I might not be the specific intended audience for this, I was able to enjoy it more. And the other thought I had is that pork chops come in extra large sizes in this book, which is always fun.
So I liked the power growth, and by what that I mean he started out with some talent, and then he built skill on top of that, but he didn't master any of the new skills that he was learning. He got better at some of them, at most of them, at all of them, I think, probably, that he was learning, but he didn't master any of them, which is good. That's called good writing, because in one book that doesn't even take a year, you're not going to master all the skills.
It was realistic improvement.
Yeah. There was also relationship growth, so between him and Halt, and between him and Horus specifically, their relationship grew, their bond of brotherhood basically grew together, and that was something that was nice to see in a middle grade book, that sometimes they don't have that type of thing.
The writing style of this is very simplistic, and it is geared towards the younger audience, and that was something that didn't set super well with me, because writing style is one of my favorite things in a story, and so I wasn't really thrilled with this one.
I don't really have any specific thoughts about the writing style. Nothing really stood out to me as good or bad, but that's probably a good thing. that there's nothing that took you out of the story or anything like that.
That's
So
true.
I would consider that a pro for this book, is that there was nothing bad about the writing style.
It's just boring.
No, it wasn't terribly boring. It was okay, but it was geared towards younger audiences, and that's something that we have to remember throughout the entire reading of this book, was that it wasn't geared for us. It was geared for fantasy fans or people who are trying to become fantasy fans when they're at that younger age. And so, yeah.
My overall rating for The Ruins of Gorlan by John Flanagan is 4.25 stars.
So my rating, very similar to Kate's, would be 4 stars.
Just slight variance.
Basically, it's just that it wasn't geared towards me, and that took my enjoyment, my general overall enjoyment of it, down just a little bit.
Yeah, there was some. It was like a Midland book, you know. It didn't quite get over the top to turn into 5 stars.
Thanks for watching this video. We know that people don't always watch reviews, so if you watched it, thank you for watching it. Please like the video and comment down below if you have read the series, what you think of it. Please try and keep spoilers out of it if you can, other than for this first book, of course. No, keep spoilers away from all of it, because other people may not have read this book. But thanks for watching. We hope you enjoyed it. We will see you next time. Stay warm.